don't even think Minolta makes cameras anymore. You know, they're more into printing and stuff. But he left me the camera. But it's interesting, during his passing, I actually asked for the camera. My grandmother, it was very interesting. She didn't want to let it go. So instead, she gave me money to get a newer camera. It was a Canon Rebel EOS. So I had it during college, and I really was thankful for that camera. But I was kind of like, man, I kind of wanted grandfather's camera, but that was fine. And my mother was like, yeah, she's not ready to let anything of his go. It's like, okay. So took that camera, did all sorts of cool stuff with it and everything. In college, I was the photo editor for the Hampton Script, the newspaper, and kept that camera with me and did all sorts of stuff with it even after post college. I was a freelance photographer and stringer writer for the black newspaper, the Charlotte Post, in my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. So that camera, that thing worked with me for so long. So maybe a few years later, possibly by like 2000 or so, my grandmother let me have the camera. And I was like, all right, that was really cool. And maybe it was just the fact that she just needed time to let my grandfather go. He passed in 1997. My uncle passed in 99. So there was just that period where really, as far as my immediate family, I was the only male left. And so that was a hard time. So maybe at that period, I think maybe my grandmother was like, okay, it's time to pass something on to me, because at that point I was now like 21, 22. When you get to like 98, I was like 22. So by like the time you get to 2000, I'm like 24 and so on. So my grandmother kind of let me do some things a little more independent. I was back home in Charlotte and living my life, and a lot of things I did, I could say I'm very thankful that my grandfather got me the camera, because I used both cameras to a degree, but I had to learn how to use this one. What I realized, a lot of people don't know, is my grandfather, education wise, wasn't really allowed to, he didn't go to college. Don't think he finished high school, but he kind of made his way. And I didn't find out till later that his literacy level was pretty low. But a lot of things that he did, he was self-taught. Kind of, you say, odd jobs handyman, but also like a self-taught electrician, which was very interesting. So a lot of stuff that he did, I didn't understand why it took him so long to look or read the paper. I just thought he was working on stuff, but that was because it took him a long time to read. Out of that, having the camera, he had the instruction booklet and stuff with it. And even though I had taken photography in college, still me learning about what exactly were, shutter speed and understanding aperture. It wasn't really I was using the camera, but still not really knowing what to do with it. Like, he even had like some telephoto lenses with it. But again, I didn't know what I was doing. So it wasn't until much later when the Rebel camera that I got when I moved into the place I currently live, the neighborhood wasn't as great as it was then. So I came out of my apartment one day and my car had been broken into, but I was like, ain't nothing in here. I ain't worried about it. And then I remembered I left the Rebel camera in the trunk. Opened the trunk, gone. Luckily, this camera was in the house. And so this became the camera that I primarily shoot with. And then that really made me figure out how to really shoot. I have to thank the filmmaker, poet, and photographer Nigel Mumin for giving me a crash course on shooting. So once I figured that out, it was a really cool thing. I saved a lot of rolls of film, and so I actually had some of his rolls and developed them maybe a few years back. So I have photos from, like 1996, around the time of like the last full year before he passed, and other photos. Something about, film, since it's not, people don't use it as much anymore, it's a rarity, but to develop those photos, it was really something special, because I got to having rolls of film over 20 years old, and it's like going back in time. The surprises we're seeing, a few people who are gone now, like my uncle's passed, so it was interesting to see a photo with him in the 90s, healthy, doing well, and then also seeing my cousin, who's like my sister, just seeing her stages of growth and my growth, and then my grandmother who passed in 2011, and just seeing her and seeing the inside of the house, and just a lot of stuff came back, and seeing my mother's hair go from pretty black to a little bit of gray. And just watching how all of us as a family have changed. I can think of a lot of black men, even myself. You get to a certain age, you wonder, what are you going to leave behind? If you whether that's if you have children, what are you going to leave to them? Or the question is, shoot, if you don't have children, when you're thinking about children, are you ever going to leave? Are they going to be children? Are they going to be your legacy? And then there are other ways, but then that's the wild thing about life is, the people that pass on, well, when they're looking at you from the spiritual realm, from heaven or whatever, they see what they've passed on. But sometimes I think in this life today, where we question what we leave, but we don't realize what we leave people just through our experiences of them being in our lives. And so my grandfather was very instrumental in my life. And the only thing I have to add also is he's not my biological grandfather. So he's like the boyfriend of my grandmother. But her husband, my maternal grandfather, he passed pretty young. So my mother was 10 and my aunt was 6. So they had this father hunger. My mother talks about the father hunger that she had and how her connecting with Hobbes was like an answer. So she talks about she said she had a father, but she never got to have a daddy. I didn't even call my grandfather. I just called him Hobbes, which was his last name. And who knows if my grandfather even thought that I would be going for the camera, because at the time of his passing, I don't even think we talked about photography, even though I enjoyed it and I loved it, liked it, had an interest, but that wasn't something we talked about. So yeah, as you can see, there's the straps around my neck, but these straps are old. This is like and for him, whenever he got something, he had to get all the bells and whistles. So he had to get the camera strap, he had to get the camera bag, he had to get the telephoto lens, he had to do all this stuff. There's even a little thing you can put on at the bottom of the camera that makes it an automatic camera. So he had all this stuff. Because he was self-taught with a lot of stuff, I think he had to go all out because it had to take him longer to do things. So like I remember going to his house and he made a jacuzzi. Who makes a jacuzzi? Then he also built this retractable roof where he could sit in the jacuzzi with my grandmother. He could pull a little crank and the roof would open. And this is just what I'm talking about, self-taught dude. When he went fishing, he had all the lures. He was just like, I'm gonna go out and do that. And I don't know if that may have been from the poverty that he had to deal with being younger in North Carolina. Could also been like the racism as well that he had to deal with. There are a few stories about that as well. Just you kind of have to go all out for the bells and whistles in life. I think to a degree he was the storyteller of our family. And, he left this document in photos. But he also passed on, you could say through the oral tradition, the way of telling stories. He was a great storyteller, which I say I got his ability to tell a joke and leave people in suspense.
The stoop of the storefront pizza shop is a beehive, a sound clash of words, colors, smells. Garlic competes with cool water, liquor sweat, and close quarters club funk. We watched this soup bubble burst.
My favorite one is he was in a card game in New York, I don't know where, and they were playing cards, and he had a ring on his finger. Sometimes you don't take your ring off and it swells. So these dudes bust up into the card game, and they're all like, all right, everybody, we want to give me money, get it out of here. So they're breaking people, breaking people. Give me that, give me this. So my grandfather's like, well, look, I can't do it about this ring. I'm just going to hide it out. So the dudes were almost leaving. The dude was like, hold up. Let me get that ring you got on your finger. My grandfather was like, look, it's, as you can see, it ain't coming off, man. It's, it's just, it's stuck. I can't do anything. So the man went to the kitchen, was kind of rummaging in the kitchen, came out with a butcher knife. Was like, let me tell you something. You don't take that ring off, I'm going to take that finger and I'm going to take that ring. My grandfather looked at the guy with the knife and he went, plink. I love that story. He did that at the table, man. We were screaming. We were like, no, it's a lie. Oh my God. The way he said, I pulled that ring off and it went pling-a-link. That's the way he said it, man. I love that story.